hot mess, which is which is
Yes.
Scale Academy. All right. So, is there anything else that you'd like to mention in this thing about like when an organization expresses a need and you're able to come with a solution or program for that? Is there anything else before we move on to the next question?
I think that's about it.
Okay, let's move on to the next question.
Okay.
Uh, did you implement any new training tools or systems
Oh,
aside
for
from the
scale?
yeah, aside from the things that we discussed?
I think that's about it that I can
Okay.
think of.
Uh, and by the way, have we discussed what systems you use to track student progress? Was that the path thing? Uh,
Um, we
exactly.
use a system called Jupiter,
Oh, all
and
right.
that's where all the teachers put the grades in.
Mm-hmm. All right. Okay.
And
And
we also use um, Star 360,
mm-hmm. Okay. All right.
and we also use Exact Path. And so what I end up doing is, and I track all the SPED students.
Mm-hmm.
Um, is I track to see how they're doing. I'm making sure all their assignments are being met. Um, and if they have any incompletes, I'm calling a meeting with the
Mm-hmm.
academic counselor and any the teacher of record, and we're getting together to create a plan to make sure that student catches up or increases their grade.
Right. 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 Okay. Um. Let's see. All right. So, do you also have like benchmarks established? You also establish like benchmarks to
Um,
assess the student performance and like the program performance or the program's performing.
Now we have someone who does the benchmarks. Yes, we
Okay.
do. And she and if I have any questions about any of the students, SPED students, I'll go to her and I will ask her, okay, Jana, when you're like, when you assess them, what was the condition? Sometimes she goes site to site and works with them. So I may ask her, okay, what are they doing? What do you think? She'll give me
Okay.
feedback. She also creates an online report that
Mhm.
when she does do like the benchmarkings themselves, she makes notes. So
Right.
I look at all that.
Right. Is the data on that and like
Yes,
make decisions regarding students.
exactly.
All right. Okay. Okay, and like you make decisions regarding like, okay, this student isn't meeting his goal. We need to update the IEP. We need to figure out what's going wrong here, and we need to change the plan accordingly. Right?
Yes, and if I have to call an emergency IEP, then that's what I do.
All right. Okay. Now, other than this, the final question is: how did you mentor teaching assistants slash trainers? Okay, we discussed that.
hmm
Other than the whole training program that you created, is there anything else that you did to like mentor teaching assistants, counselors, people like that?
Like I worked with the registration and enrollment
Okay.
um, to understand the different documents that we needed, and there was a system already in place for registration and enrollment. They weren't following it,
Oh,
so that was messing the SPED department up and pushing us behind.
mhm.
So I went to the administration building and did a training.
Okay.
And I
Right.
actually did the training on what's called Pear Deck. I used Pear Deck for that.
Okay. Right.
And Pear Deck, they can go ahead and respond.
All right. And were there any like challenges in this in like mentoring
Oh
and
yeah.
teaching?
Oh yes, because
Okay.
they didn't want to follow protocol. What they were doing, what was convenient for them, but
Mhm.
the SPED department wasn't getting the information that they needed.
Mhm.
And so
Right.
we were actually doing more work looking for information and calling schools, looking for IEPs that should have already been available to us.
Right. 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 And like this is what you did to like overcome this challenge because they weren't doing this work.
They weren't
You,
doing it.
yeah, you had to manually look into it and like call the schools and stuff like that. But is there
it
any like more permanent, sustainable corrective measures that you put in place other than the accountability system?
um,
Or-
Making my boss aware, the
Oh,
principal, um,
right.
and making sure that that was put into place. Basically, if they don't do what they need to do now, because now they've been trained, they will
Oh,
get disciplined as a result because they can't say they don't know now. And then I
oh,
even went over each form, which was forms that they were supposed to know about because it's their it was their forms related to the SPED department. So what I did is I educated myself on the forms and then did a presentation on their forms that affected our department.
oh, right, right, right. Like these forms are like from the each of the individual sites, right?
The forms is an overall scale form. It's part of the registration enrollment packet that has to be filled out by the parent.
All right. Okay. All right, but they should have like known about this form and how it affects their whole like program themselves. But like they didn't know that, and you had to train and like you had to do research on that on each of these forms and like tell tell them train them on how to like utilize these forms, right?
Correct. And those forms are specific for the SPED department.
Okay, right. And you're saying forms, right? So there were like for each student or for each
Each
site.
student. It's for each SPED student.
Right.
So like
Uh,
right now there's an error
mhm,
um that was created and a parent filled out the form
mhm.
and there was a mistake that was made. So the family was forwarded to me and the parents like, well, my student is an SPED student. So, just making sure that like I need like when I go back to work tomorrow, I have to let them know they have to be careful. So I mean there's still little mistakes,
Mm,
but
right.
yeah,
But like most of the major things have been like smoothened out, right? Because you've like,
correct.
like if they still don't follow procedure, you can just tell the principal and like they'll now then the principal will take corrective measures. Okay. All right.
Correct.
Okay. Now what is left? Is there anything left? Okay. We talked about the challenges, strategies that you adopted, now the results. So challenge action results, okay, results. So let's talk about the results. So after doing this, after implementing this whole training program, like training these people on how to like use the forms and how to like do the stuff that they're supposed to do, did that affect the whole performance of your department, like improve its productivity, help more students achieve their goals
Yes.
quickly? Okay.
Yes, it did help.
Okay. Okay. And is there any metric that you can use to define like how much by how much it helped, by what margin it helped, like by what margin it
Mm,
like?
no.
Okay, all
I
right.
just I noticed that we're not having as many problems and I'm not constantly being called as much.
Right, right, right. By problems you mean complaints from like teachers and like parents, right?
Mm, yeah. Or Lisa, yeah, and from staff. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Mm, okay, I believe we are done here. By the way, we've talked about the systems, the training systems, the things that you have introduced, right? Okay.
Yes.
Diagnose organizational problem areas. That's done, 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 done. Training and development. Okay. Right. Is there any other like e-learning or like online tool that you introduced other than the ones that we talked about?
I'm sorry.
Is there any other e-learning or like technology-based education tool that you introduced other than the ones that we talked about?
No,
Okay.
not. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. Could you give me a minute to like go through your bullets to see if there's
Yes.
anything else to talk about? Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. By the way,
Yes.
Lisa, have
Yes.
you attempted like already started your job search?
I'm sorry.
Have you started your job search?
Yes.
Okay. And like, how much time has it been since you started the job search? Like, have you been applying for
Um.
jobs?
My. I've been looking. I've had like recruiters call.
Okay.
It's probably been maybe like 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay. And you've had like recruiters call you, right?
Right. But what I'm looking for, like, like from different companies that represent like special ed psychologists, but
Hmm.
I'm looking to. I don't mind doing it if I have to, but if I can work directly for a company, that's what I would prefer.
Okay. If you want to work direct, what could you repeat that last sentence again? If you want to work directly for a company,
I'm sorry.
could you repeat the last sentence again? If you want, I couldn't
Oh,
hear that.
right. I would like, how you have agencies, um
Mm-hmm.
like Delta T, and I forgot what the other one is called for SPED and Psych. Um but I would prefer to work the um so like someone like my brother, he worked with a recruiter. I don't even know how
Mm-hmm.
to describe it, but you have these companies that they take a bigger cut off of what you're make. They take a nice size clump off of what you make to be placed into a company.
Oh, all right.
And I would prefer just to be able to work for a company, because then sometimes if you decide you like that company wants you, you have
Right, right.
you sign a contract and you can't work for them because your contract is actually with an agency.
Oh, all right. Okay.
So that's kind of like who's been calling.
Oh, see. Huh. And you want to apply for the companies directly now, right? Without the agent.
R- Right. I don't mind like a recruiter. I don't want to work with an agency that places you
Mm, all
if
right.
I don't have
Okay.
to.
Okay. Uh, I understand that. Creating content by insurance registration. Okay. This bullet about created and conducted trainings for paraprofessionals and general education teachers on topics related to special education and EEL student needs, and how to meet student needs. So this is the thing that we just talked about, right? The training program with the presentations and stuff.
Yes.
Okay. Right. And by paraprofessionals, what do you mean by paraprofessionals?
Paraprofessionals are individuals that assist the teacher.
Okay. Could you give me examples?
So let's say if the teacher is teaching,
Mhm.
um, a paraprofessional would be or let's say there's an assignment. The teacher can be helping the student, and the paraprofessional could be helping the student too. The paraprofessional helps students, but they do not actually teach the lesson.
Oh,
So they're more like a paraprofessional is more like a teacher's aide. They just
teaching
changed
us.
the name.